Hello and welcome to this quarter of the podcast of Buck 90, boxing's biggest names, boxing's biggest stories, boxing's biggest fights, greatest memories and moments. We've had a little hiatus, a little sabbatical to recenter, refocus. We're back at it. And as always, we have boxing writer, CompuBox expert, historian, author, producer, director, one lovable guy in West Virginia, friendly West Virginia, population
98, I believe.
Part of the 98, the one and only Lee Groves. How you doing, Lee?
Doing well. How about yourself?
How do I answer that? It has been life's vicissitudes, ups and downs, highs and lows. Was visiting my 89-year-old mom in Georgia, the great state of Georgia. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's been an interesting time, and this is where boxing analogies come in so great. There's been so many people. I remember asking Samuel L. Jackson, the great actor, on my show, why has boxing done so well on the big screen? I've asked Stallone the same question. And it just lends so well for life, you know, the ups and downs, the highs and lows, the getting knocked down and getting up and taking it as I'm doing right now. And so are you, because I know what's going on in your life. We're kind of taking it one round at a time. Sometimes that's great advice for a fighter to do in the midst of a pitched battle. But it also can help you in life when life can get overwhelming, and you simply, go back to the corner. Hopefully you have somebody, a great corner man in life, a corner woman in life to give you advice, and you go back and take it one round at a time. But we've got a lot of stuff to do on this program. We're going to do some recaps, a preview. We're going to do a little free-for-all segment where we talk about the state of the sport. And then at the very end, I think that'll be probably segment 4, but we'll go through this as rapidly as we can because we know that in this world, people have a 47-second attention span. You're going to have to go at least 47 minutes with us. But we're going to unveil what we're going to do moving forward. We have what I think you will think is a very exciting thing. It's not anything new. It's just something that always works in boxing. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But first, what we'll do is we're going to do something a little differently. Rather than go to the break to save a little time,
okay,
let's just go right into segment 1 with our recaps. And so that might even shorten the show and make it a 3-segment show. So let's start out with what took place over the weekend. I saw much and most of it, but not all of it. But I'll let you guide us through this past weekend in boxing. We didn't see any great fights, that's for damn sure, but we saw some of the bigger names. So go ahead, take it away.
Sure. Last weekend featured several high-profile fights that seem to have a common link, and that is prominent fighters who were trying to regain the status they had previously enjoyed. One fight that epitomized this theme was Tim Tszyu's 12-round unanimous decision over Errol Spence. And, the first thing I noticed about this fight was just how much larger and thicker Tszyu was than Spence. Spence was a pretty big welterweight, and we were used to seeing him taller and longer and more powerful looking than his opponents. But here, at 160, there was a very noticeable size difference. And the thing about it was, the fight was originally supposed to have been 154 pounds, but at Spence's request, I believe, it went up to 158, and then it went up to 160. And it really showed. It really showed. And the second thing that I noticed was Spence's legs. And to Paulie Malignaggi's credit, he pointed out the problem with Spence's back leg about 20 seconds into the fight. Paulie said, and I think correctly, he simply didn't have the balance to drive off that leg and deliver a shot powerful enough to really hurt Tszyu. And that's notice.
By the way, before you go on, you can give Paulie all the accolades and credit you want. Somebody else told you this ages ago. about Errol Spence,
Yeah.
if I might be given to some jactation and braggadocio.
Well, yeah, you're right about that. In fact, the week of the Spence and Crawford fight, we originally picked Spence to win for reasons that you can go review. But then you noticed that his legs were bad, his whole visage was bad. You even told me he was shot. And of course, we saw what we saw, and apparently time had not been very kind to Errol Spence. But Spence had the look of a man who was fighting off an avalanche. He was backing off, he was throwing the jab all the time. He was landing shots pretty cleanly, but they didn't have any effect on Tszyu. And that's notable because Murtazalia knocked him down 4 times, Fundura knocked him down, and yet he was just merely buzzed against Spence. In fact, I had the fight even after 8 rounds, but in rounds 9 to 12, Tszyu landed those heavy rights to the jaw, and those combined with the crowd support he was getting in Australia, that allowed Tszyu to sweep the final 4 rounds on my card. It was 116 to 112. And to his credit, also, Spence announced his retirement during the post-fight interview. And he said all the things that we want our champions to say. He said, I have my faculties, I have my money, I have my family. And he's going to spend the rest of his days enjoying those things. So let's hope that sometime in the next few years we'll be seeing him in Canastota, whether
So
it be as a visitor or as an inductee.
my response to that is that again, I told you that he was shot before he got in the ring with Terrence Crawford.
Right.
During the fight, I was texting you and telling you that he was, his movement inside the ring was so ponderous. His balance was completely off. He had lost his ability to absorb a punch. I'm not a doctor, and even a doctor couldn't tell us. Was it boxing? I think it was more the accidents, car accidents, plural, especially the one terrible one, and his lifestyle outside the ring, the drinking,
Yeah.
which is the demise of many a great champion, and a little bit of father time. Every athlete is different. Every athlete is different. Most of you all who talk about the sport aren't athletes. You never played any damn thing, so you wouldn't know. So it's everybody's different. And I think that what I saw during the fight, his ponderous movements in the ring, and then his ponderous speech now outside the ring. If you don't believe me, go back and look at tape of Errol Spence speaking, let's say when he was getting ready to fight Kell Brook or something like that,
Yeah.
prior to the accident, and look at him now. And then you make your own damn judgment. But he did do a good job as well as he could inside that ring in Australia. And to be blunt, and I'm going to be probably more blunt these days than I've ever been, and I've never been known for not being that way, but I'm going to be even more so these days with where I'm at and my thoughts about all of this. It also speaks to Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu is a good fighter.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm going to change some of my verbiage. He's, because sometimes I'll use the word club fighter. He's not a club fighter. He's a good fighter. Almost, if you want to add a word, real good. Great? Hell no. Elite? Never. He's a good
Mm-hmm.
fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Errol Spence was never quite at elite, but he was great. He was heading towards elite. I still think, agree with you, he could be a Hall of Famer.
Could be.
But it just shows, again, if we're honest and we get away from all the Australia talk or all the Spence talk or the PBC bullshit, he's shot. Errol Spence is shot. Tim Tszyu is good. If that had been Fundora, he would have stopped Errol Spence, in my opinion. And, some of the others, Virgil Ortiz and others would have stopped him. Tszyu beat him. He did his job. And so Errol Spence, congratulations on a wonderful career. please go and get your life and your health together. Maybe make a visit to the Lou Ruvo Center here in Las Vegas to check out what's going on with your, your brain and perhaps your speech. And you've gotten out at the right time, and you had a wonderful, marvelous career. As for Tim Tszyu, this will get him in title contention again, I guess. And there you go. So I pontificated enough. If you want to respond to any of that, you can, or you can move forward.
Let's move forward. The other two fights that happened this weekend involved Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. And make no mistake, the main objective was to nail down the fight that is supposed to take place between the two of them later on this year. And to that end, Fury faced 46-year-old Fury-Wach in Thailand. And the fight was not shown on any of the major networks or streaming services because it was to be part of his Netflix reality series. However, a YouTube video showing most of the fight was posted several hours after it happened. And based on what I saw, it was pretty much a glorified sparring session in which Fury was in complete control. He was quicker, he was slicker, as he should have been. And while he won every round, he was not overwhelming. And given that Wach had been knocked out 6 times previously, one would have thought that Fury would have been able to stop him, but he didn't. So the question that I have is to you is, did this help prepare Fury to face Joshua in any way?
Yeah. Well, he did stop him, didn't he?
Well, there was a corner retirement.
Yeah.
He sat down in the corner between rounds 7.
Okay, you mean defiantly, and and categorically stop him with his fist.
Correct.
It was horrible. You said it nicely. It was basically it looked like a shit fest. It was terrible, just terrible, that fight. I mean, it wasn't even a good sparring session, and Fury looked like an older guy flipping out his jab and flipping out a right hand. You can still see some of the athleticism of an older guy, and it proved absolutely nothing. But I do understand it. If it was a better fighter than he faced, and if he looked a little bit better, just to have a tune up before the AJ thing, which leads us to the AJ thing.
Right. To the AJ thing, indeed. And there was the AJ thing against Tszyu-Spence in Saudi Arabia. And in the first 20 seconds, it looked as if the big payday was going to go up in smoke.
Right.
As Prenga connected with a perfectly timed right uppercut that left AJ sprawled on the canvas. Joshua was genuinely hurt. He arose on unsteady legs. And later in the round, another uppercut, this time with the left hand, scored a second knockdown. Somehow AJ survived the round, and the 60-second rest didn't really do him a lot of good because he still looked buzzed at the time the second round started. But Prenga, for whatever reason, didn't smash his foot on the accelerator. He didn't go for the knockout. And because of that, Joshua was given the time and the space to recover. And once he did, Joshua landed a really precise and powerful combination that put Prenga down and out. And with that, AJ versus Fury was saved. What did you think about that particular episode?
Much of what we've seen before, except a mitigated version. AJ always had great power, and he still does.
Mm-hmm.
That boxing adage, the power is the last thing to go.
Right.
And he still has his deliverables to be able to deliver that power. So he still has that. But he's always been chinny, and now it's even worse. He just can't absorb anything. Whatever he gets hit with, he goes down. He gets up for the most part, but his ability to take a punch never was much, and now is really poor, which leads us to, I'll just get it out of the way. This fight with AJ and Tyson Fury, I hope it takes place for only one reason. really not even for the fighters, because they could have had it years ago. For the fans,
Yeah.
the UK fans, the Great Britain fans, they deserve it, man. They are the best fans in boxing, along with the Mexicans and some of the others.
Yeah.
Not us here in the U.S. at all. They deserve it, and they should get it. But what you're going to get is Ali versus Holmes. The Holmes that faced Mike Tyson and the Ali that faced Larry Holmes.
Mm.
That's what you're going to get. Think about that. That's what you're going to get. And is it worth it? Do you want it just to see these two in the ring? That's up to the fans. So what do you think?
I think that I agree with you. This fight is taking place about 10 years after it should have. It should have taken place when both were undefeated world champions at the peak of their powers. You take a look at the gold standard of timing, which was the first fight between Thomas Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard. They were in their 20s. They had they put on a historic show. And I think the best that we can hope for, me being the optimist that I am, the best that we could hope for is that both guys are at the same level of erosion, so that we would get something like Ali Frazier 3 or Leonard Hearns 2. You know that the two guys aren't what they used to be, but the styles hopefully will mix well and we'll get a nice show. As long as you see this upcoming fight for what it is, and that's a showdown between two big names who are late in their careers. Don't just see it for what it is. If you expect more from it, you'll be disappointed. So just temper your expectations and just enjoy.
It would be like Jaws 3. And what I mean by that is by the time you've seen Jaws 1, which great classic, then the second one, the third one was here I go again, a shit show. I mean, and you can't compare it to Ali Frazier 3, Lee, because
well, of course not.
The styles of those two meshed so well for a great fight, because you had Ali still being that faded version along with the faded version of Frazier, but still the contrasting styles, which made for some people think that was the best fight. I don't, but most boxing fans think the third one was the best. But yeah, I like your one of Leonard and Hearns too. I was at that. I think it came almost 8 or 9 years after their original fight.
Yeah, it's 8 years.
Something like that. But again, whatever the British fans want, I want them to get. The fighters, as for the fighters, shame on them. And they could have made that fight happen years ago. I don't know which one is to blame, so I'll blame both of them.
And I think in November, and they're talking about having this fight in November, the show is going to be more of the fans and the atmosphere that they create. Should this fight take place in the UK as it should, and should it happen in a decent time of day for them as it should? That's still up in the air right now.
Yeah.
But hopefully boxing will get at least that part right.
And they better, has it been, I don't think it's even been, has it been signed yet?
It's all but signed. There hasn't been a date or a venue announced yet, but they're thinking November in the UK. They still have to iron out those differences. At least that's the latest I've heard.
Okay. And we've got, I know, a couple of previews, and I'll let you handle that before we go to break.
Yeah, tonight on DAZN and TNT, there will be a title fight doubleheader. And the co-main event will see Raymond Muratalla defend his IBF lightweight championship against former WBC 130-pound titleist Roach-Zepeda. And to me, this fight is the latest chapter of a long-running story in boxing. Young lion who is looking to become a star against an older lion seeking to relive past glories. At age 29, Muratalla is in his prime, and he's coming off a 12-round majority decision over Andy Cruz that probably should have been unanimous, while the 37-year-old Conceicao is engaging in his fourth championship fight in his last 6 bouts. In 2023, he overcame 2 knockdowns to fight Emmanuel Navarrete to a draw, and in 2024, he split 2 fights against O'Shaquie Foster, the first in which he won the title, the second in which he lost the title. Both fights were split decisions. Now, given how good Muratalla has looked in his last several fights, I'm not only picking him to retain his belt, he may be the first to stop Conceicao. And the main event, we'll see Lamont Roach and William Zepeda vie for the WBC lightweight title vacated by Shakur Stevenson. This is a fight I'm looking forward to because the storyline surrounding it. First, Roach is coming off back-to-back controversial draws against Gervonta Davis and Isaac Pitbull Cruz.
And by the way, who did you made a great analogy. We were talking about it, about where Roach is at. I think you brought up the name Zahir Rahim, I think.
Zahir Rahim, yeah. Zahir Rahim, he was part of a doubleheader involving Eric Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera, or no, Manny Pacquiao. And they were setting up the rematch between Morales and Pacquiao. And Zahir Rahim, Pacquiao did his part of the deal by scoring a TKO, I believe. And Zahir Rahim spoiled the party by winning a decision over Eric Morales. And after that, Zahir Rahim was pretty much treated like an afterthought. He should have been the one fighting Pacquiao next, but it didn't work out that way. But anyway, Lamont Roach, he was supposed to be the party of the second part against Gervonta Davis, and he was supposed to be that same guy against Pitbull Cruz in a little lesser way. But he fought a lot better than people thought that he would, and he got draws that he should have won.
Right.
He really should have won. But Zepeda is also fighting for the first time since losing to Stevenson 12 and a half months ago. How is he going to come back from that long layoff? And third, like Zepeda versus Stevenson, Roach versus Zepeda pits two completely different styles. Zepeda is the aggressive volume puncher, and Roach is a scientific and precise power counter puncher. This is a tough fight for me to pick because I am so enamored by Zepeda's blend of work rate and aggression and jabbing and accuracy. I picked him to beat Stevenson, by the way. And Stevenson, to his credit, rose to the occasion and he did what he had to do. He won and he deserved to win. But Roach is going to probably use that same fight plan against Zepeda. But is he as good as Stevenson at applying that style? If he is, he'll win. If he's not, Zepeda's going to run him over.
I think for all the reasons that you thought Zepeda might be able to beat Shakur are the reasons he'll win this fight against Roach. Roach is a watered-down version. He's also not a star. And even if he wins some rounds, if they're close, who are they going to go to because of that derangements? What do you call that? Aggressors
derangement syndrome.
There you go. So I agree with you. I agree with you.
As far as my pick is concerned, it's reluctant, but I am going to pick Zepeda to win on points.
And by the way, you had all the picks right with the AJ fight. You called it a knockout for AJ. You had, I think, Fury winning maybe by stoppage or decision, and to your credit, you had Tszyu winning not by stoppage over Spence, but by decision, and you got that one right as well. Yeah. We're going to take a break and come back and talk about, dare I say it, the state of the sport. We'll be back. Back on In This Corner of the podcast, $1.90, Lee Groves, Smitty. Lee, what you got for me? State of the sport.
State of the sport, free for all. We talked about that at the top of the show. When we were talking on the phone this morning, you were talking about Ryan Garcia's recent...
Was I talking or ranting, Lee?
Probably ranting, but, that's up to you to decide. Anyway... you talked about some sort of Michael Jackson getup, and of course we saw him involved in a WWE segment. SummerSlam is happening this weekend, and he aligned himself with a heel group. What are your thoughts on Mr. Garcia?
What have my thoughts always been on him? He's talented to a degree. He has some talent. We all know about his speed and his left hook. And I've seen some improvement at times. But all of this crap that he does outside the ring, one can say, that we're older guys, get over it. He's out, because mainly who he hangs out with are social media influencers, and they're influencing him to do all of this stuff outside the ring. I just believe I take boxing very seriously and as a sport, and I'm all for having fun. God knows I put a lot of that into my life. Not career, though, and not careers. When I'm focused on the career, it's serious stuff. In boxing, there's nothing more serious than that. Almost every video you see about the Ryan is on tiled floor with air conditioning, hitting a bag, and you'll see other little posts that are there to get viral hits. I'm sure one can argue he goes to the gym, and I know he does, and he stays thin. He's gifted genetically with that. But in terms of improving, really improving, and ever becoming anything close to, well, I'll go back to my thing. He's a good fighter. He's not great, and he never will be. I think he had a chance at greatness years ago had he gotten with a guy like an Emmanuel Stewart or an Eddie Futch and really applied his craft. Even if he went and did the Duran and Camacho and stuff outside the ring, but if he had that ability to focus in camp and be ready for a fight and be the best version pugilistically, but he's not, and he never will be, and he wouldn't even understand what I'm saying. He's so damn stupid, he doesn't even think Gennady Golovkin's a Hall of Famer. He's so warped in his mind, he thinks probably he's a Hall of Famer. Really what he's going to end up being for me is a Hall of Shamer, a guy who never made the most of his great athleticism. He's rich. Great. If that's what it's all, it is called prize fighting.
It is.
But as far as boxing fans, as far as boxing purists, as far as boxing experts, I don't think that he'll go down with anybody having any real respect for him. Is there still a chance that he can do some really, really good stuff inside the squared circle? There is. And if he did and he proved me wrong, I would agree with it. But beating Mario Barrios was not a great accomplishment. He was a good accomplishment. So there, enough on Ryan for me. I've said enough. I would not put him on this show as a guest. I'm sure he wouldn't care. He can go on with the other guys with their little mannequins, and he can go on with all the young guys that want to have him on. I wouldn't, I was with these kind of guys. And so Ryan Garcia, I have no interest in him. If you think I'm being too hard on him, I know in the past you did think I was being too hard on him. I don't know what you think now, but that's my thoughts on him.
Well, I do have a question. How do you think he's going to do against Conor Benn?
He could win that fight if he's totally focused and goes in with a game plan. He has the ability. Conor Benn's nothing special at all. He's a good fighter too. The best version of him, I believe, was a steroid version, I believe, of him. We haven't seen a lot of that power, but he is going to apply pressure. And if he applies pressure and does it halfway decent, he'll win. If Ryan fights his best version, I think he can win. So I guess what I'm doing is saying it should be a good fight, an interesting fight for you fans who are into that.
Yeah. What did you make of Nico Ali Walsh appearing on the Zuffa card? Because I remember you were interviewing him at the Hall of Fame during one of the ringside lectures. He was given an update on the changes that he wants to have made to the bill. And he was on there. He was on Zuffa's air talking to Joe Tessitore. and he said that there were meetings with some senators, and he reported that there might be changes to the bills that was passed out of the House. It'll probably be amended in the Senate and tossed back to the House, but he expressed hope that some of the provisions that he has been going for will be included in the new legislation. Were you surprised to see him on their air, and were you surprised by what he said?
Uh, that was a Zuffa telecast,
Yes,
correct?
it was a Zuffa
Yeah, I don't
telecast.
watch Zuffa boxing, but I
Yeah,
did hear about it. I think Nico Ali's a fine young man. We even had him on the show.
just great
Uh,
guest.
Yes, he is. His what they're trying to do, those powers that be, are appease and placate him to get him to sign on, so they will have an Ali on board.
Mhm,
That's a big name, Ali. I think one of Ali's ex-wives is on board already. I think
mhm.
the UBA. You know the about this whole thing.
Sure.
Some of the changes they can make are fine, but are they going to make the real ones that matter? And I think what they're trying to do is placate and appease him to where he gets aboard, and then it goes through, because at the end of the day we know it's going to pass. We know it's going through. How is it not? It's Dana White and Donald Trump. It's going to
Mhm.
go through. That's all there is to it. So but I credit Nico for his balls and the ability that shows he has some of, he's an Ali. But Muhammad Ali wouldn't compromise on something like that. Ali wouldn't compromise on the Vietnam War. I mean, he could have gone to jail and he wouldn't have cared. That's
Right.
how Ali was. And that's a different time. That's a different man. But I give Nico, you know what? I don't know what Nico's going to become inside the squared circle. I think he's got a lot more abilities to be great outside of the squared circle. And so I hope he continues to press forward.
I do as well. He says that he is for the fighters, and we're for the fighters too. And we want the very best for them because of all they risk every time they step into the ring. And of course, this sort of dovetails into the next subject, the general sport or the general state of boxing. It's no secret we have been on for 5.5 years, and for a lot of those 5.5 years, we have pretty much said our piece as far as the direction that boxing is going. And I've often said it's because boxing voluntarily chose to remove itself from the highest visibility platforms into all of to just paywalls, a bunch of paywalls. And if you force people to pay for something, less people are going to watch. And that opened the door to all sorts of different things that have happened. The Jake Paul thing and bare knuckle boxing and all of the other iterations that are out there right now. Is there any hope right now, Smitty, for boxing?
Well, there's always hope if you have any kind of faith. But if not, and that's going to dovetail into our final segment of where we're going with all of this show. But
Right.
what we have tried to do on this program is cover the fight like boxing experts, journalists, historians. And, I don't think there's anybody in the sport now, with the exception of maybe a couple of radio guys or whatever, and writers, of course, that have covered it as lengthy and certainly not as deeply as I have. And nobody has been able to do what I've done with having the show in this corner and getting that access, because the fighters gave it to me, of climbing inside the squared circle after always made sure that I think maybe one was done differently, but I always wanted to interview them first and then do the in ring. And that was risky, because if I had pissed them off on the interview, they could have taken it out on me on the in ring, but they didn't. But I think the direction is septic tank bad, man, and we've chronicled that. You mentioned it's become boxing has become a reality sport.
Yeah.
It's like reality television. All
Hmm.
that people care about is that bullshit that leads up to the event, the stupid stare downs, which now they're so phony. You don't even know if there's a meaningful one. The promoters tell them to create bad blood, even when there are. That's what I like, by the way, about what I'm seeing with Raleigh and Teofimo. I should mention
Yes.
that because I'm always critical. Congrats to you guys for being legitimate young men. And Teofimo, I've had a problem with for being out there too much with the antics. But Raleigh and Raleigh, who I've criticized deeply, congrats to them for now. I hope they stick with that because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what leads up to the fight and the weigh-in. It matters what happens when the bell rings.
Mm-hmm.
As far as bare knuckle boxing, I could get real personal and say how I could have been involved with that. I never would have chosen to be involved with it. There is a reason why it was basically banned
It
and
was.
outlawed over 100 years ago because it's barbaric, and that's why we put on gloves. But let's just say let's go back. I like some things you can go back to, but does the NFL want to go back to wearing leather helmets and playing in the mediocre gear that they wore? I remember when I was a ball boy for the 72 Dolphins and all these things were coming with the helmets, with the padding, and with shoulder pads and knee pads. And for those football players who weren't able to have that, we saw what happened. The CTE just ran roughshod through the NFL. Hopefully it won't in the future. Knee injuries, the crippling of all these great football players. That no wonder, thank God, a guy like Jim Brown got out early enough, and my good friend Paul Warfield did. But do we want to go back to seeing Novacek play with a wooden racket? Do we want, Alvarez and them to have wooden rackets? We've advanced. But when it comes to bare knuckle boxing,
Yeah.
it's I mean, it's barbaric. I can't stand it. I would never ever be involved in it, and I don't think I can make myself any clearer than that.
I saw a picture on X of Victor Ortiz, who was a former welterweight champion. And this was after the fight was over. He had a bloody face. He has his eye was swollen shut. And this was after a fight that he won. He won that fight, and he won going away, and yet he looked like that. You see the aftermath of women's bare knuckle fights. That really disturbs me when they are beaten up to that. There's a reason why John L. Sullivan championed the transition from bare knuckle to gloved boxing. And one of the reasons was safety, so that boxers, so that there is still an element of danger in the sport, but also to make it safe and
With
for
some
less
protection
damage
for the
to it.
fighters,
Very much
mouthpieces,
so.
and even the advances in sparring equipment. But to be really transparent, my former broadcast partner Sean Wheelock, who's a fine announcer, we worked
Mhm.
together at with Roy Jones, and I remember he was always championing bare knuckle boxing because he's the most prominent announcer in it as far as the blow by blow aspect of it, and
Yeah.
he's a fine broadcaster. But I know I asked him before. I don't know how you do it. And I fought professionally, albeit a short career. I did it, and I still go out in the gym every 5 days a week, and I still spar, which is probably stupid, but I love it so much. But it's barbaric. It's barbaric. And why any this thing of they can be able to do what they want. Fine, just go into a bar and pick a damn fight. And by the way, most ex fighters will probably win those fights. But
Absolutely.
so why does the world love it? If you go on TikTok or Instagram, almost every video is about a fight in the street or a
Mhm.
fight at a bar or a fight at a convenience store. It's all fight, 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 which is why we loved boxing, because it was the highest level. It's where you take those fighting skills, you perfect it, and you become one of the four kings or something or you aspire to do that,
Yeah.
or you become an Arturo Gatti or a Mickey Ward, you
Mhm.
know? but
An
with
action
some
hero.
semblance. I always have called it, I think one of the greatest lines I've ever coined is artistic brutality. But there's nothing artistic about bare knuckle boxing. It's just cut off the art. It's just brutality. And it's mostly fighters far past their primes that are going in there and making these excuses as to why they can do it. And they usually win one or two, and then they get pummeled. Yeah. Pummeled. Like, I think it was Trout recently and Paulie.
Trout just got knocked out. And I think Paulie lost his last one.
Yeah. So it's part and parcel of what's going on in society, and boxing has allowed it to permeate into that. And what you can do if you enjoy it, if you're one out there that loves bare knuckle boxing, that's fantastic. Congratulations to you, if that's what you like. But I don't like it, and I don't have to cover it, and I would never cover it, and we won't cover it on this show. Is there any other things before I have to go take a lisinopril because of you?
Because of me. It's always my fault.
No, I'm kidding.
No, that's pretty much it. And that really sets up the stage for what's coming next. And we'll describe what's coming next in the next segment.
All you had to say was right after this. So say it.
Right after this.
Back, final segment in this corner of the podcast, a $1.90 with Lee Groves, Smitty. So I remember when I started this show. How long has it been since we started?
The first show was in October 2020.
Wow. Okay. And I give credit to my dear friend, the lovely and talented and Emmy Award winner Amber Renee Dixon, for talking me into doing this. And because, I'd done radio for over 20 years and commentating blow by blow and color and roving reporter and host of In This Corner for 20 or 30 years. And podcasting was a different kind of a format, basically opening the door for a lot of people who don't know anything about broadcasting, who don't know anything about journalism, but just a way for them to run their damn mouths and look at themselves and then find a way to find an audience. We never went into it with that in mind. We went into it to try to promote the sport, promote the fighters, educate, edify, and do the things that we said. Boxing's biggest names, boxing's biggest stories, boxing's biggest fights, greatest memories and moments. And the main thing was, and the thing that I've been blessed to do is probably interview more world champions than anybody on earth that's alive today. Certainly right up there. Maybe there's a writer but not a broadcaster. And boy, oh boy, have we done that. Our guest list.
Yeah.
Our guest list. And I do not want to mention the names of any others, not because I worry about them, because all the ones that are doing it, not all of them. They're not probably nice guys or gals and whatever. But to do it at what they mainly do is try to focus on what gets attention to their show, what gets clicks, what can go viral, and all of that. Not edifying, not educating. Just in anything which goes into the reality. A lot of podcasts are just reality podcast. But the biggest thing when I went, hey, let's let the fans be able to see what they had to, you had to have DirecTV or Comcast to watch In This Corner. But this is the ability to watch it easily right on YouTube, because I've kept it in that format So our guest list, I'll just lay out, and you made a partial list of our guest list, which is without question, unequivocally, the best of any podcast in
Uh,
boxing.
one of our real strengths is just the variety of people that we've had on our show. And yes, you asked me to compile a list of just the depth and the breadth of the people that we've had on our show. And they include 46 fighters, 14 of whom are in the Hall of Fame, 15 broadcasters that include 6 Hall of Famers, 13 writers, 6 Hall of Famers, 9 trainers, 1 Hall of Famer. We've had 4 executives, we've had 4 historians, we've had 3 promoters, all of whom are enshrined in the Hall of Fame. We've had 3 matchmakers, 2 ringside physicians, 2 ring announcers, 2 nutritionists, 2 managers, 2 filmmakers. We had an administrator, and then we went outside the box. We had an MMA athlete. We had an NFL Hall of Famer, Paul Warfield, and we had an A-list actor in Holt McCallany. And finally, we had Gene Kilroy, Allie's right-hand man, who gives a unique perspective of a man who we're both connected with, you personally, me professionally, through my second book, Allie by the Numbers. And I think that as far as a long form interview show, we have been eminently successful. We really have. We've had so many different people on that covered the entire gamut of the sport. But we've had discussions, and mostly because of the state of boxing as it is right now, the current scene, well, it's kind of drifted away from the ideals that made Smitty a fan and me a fan, and for us to turn our fandom into our profession and to become experts at it. And so, without any further delay, I'd like you to discuss what we've been talking about and what we've come up with.
And really, we did it not for our own egos or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
If I was doing stuff for my own ego, wouldn't be this. And I don't think, in fact, I know I've never said, so it goes on me. I've never even said subscribe to the show one time.
Mm-hmm.
Never said that in all 190 broadcasts of this show. Never said it. And because I wasn't interested in subscriptions. That shows how stupid I am. Maybe I got hit too much in my little career. I don't know, but I wasn't interested in that. I was just trying to lend my knowledge, your knowledge, and then to share these that list that you provided and let fans enjoy and learn. I wish we could have done it with the technology of like I did in radio, having fans. I would have loved to have where they can call in. Sometimes there's still a thought in my mind of someday going back to a little radio show where and I know Randy Gordon has a very successful one on Sirius, and Pedro Fernandez still has his, I believe, and he's been around a long time, deserves credit for that. If I did it, I would do it, really try to let the fans call in, because they always have something to say about, and they always love to speak and to talk to the greats. And that leads us into, now I'm going to say, you better subscribe to this show right now. You better subscribe. You better like. You better really like. And you better, what's that other word?
Well, it was like, subscribe, and suggest. And that
Yes.
leads us to what we're doing.
And there's no other sport that comes close when it comes to historical reference, history than boxing. Nobody knows that better living today than you. And, my late great friend Hank Kaplan, one of the things we love to talk about all the time were great matchups, legacy fights, or as we're going to call them moving forward, classic clashes of the greatest fighters of any time, of all time, fights that never happened, and we'll go all over the place, but for the most part, it'll be, fighters that we might do some of guys that are still fighting today against legends, but there's really only a handful of fighters today who, in my opinion, are going to make that list, because there's not that many that I consider that great. The best of them, Crawford retired, but there
Right.
are some, like Canelo still hanging around, and Inoue and Bam and
Usyk.
Sugar's getting there, and a few others. But these classic clashes, and what I wanted to do, and boy, it's so important that fans make suggestions, but that also go on when you put out your teases and your clips and on our YouTube channel. And we're going to add some platforms, but I'll get to that later and we'll let everybody know. But at least now, when we're on the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, please make comments, give your predictions, because that's what we're craving. And these classic clashes lend to that. So for the first one, that'll be coming up in about a week, it will be, I'll let you do it.
We decided to match up Aaron Pryor versus Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker. That's a very interesting style
I'm
clash.
smiling right now. I'm already smiling because, yes, yeah. And the reason I came up with that, and you thought it was great, we usually are not given to vacillation, ambiguity, or ambivalence. But both of us, Whitaker, the better defensive, Pryor, the more aggressive, and the contrast, and wow, who's going to win that fight? And
tough pick.
Yeah, but before, I guess one thing I buried in this is we are going to, and we will explain if it's something special, but we want to match fighters, obviously the prime Aaron Pryor,
Yes.
the prime Pryor against the prime Sweet Pea Whitaker. And when we do these shows, we'll say the Whitaker of this fight, the Pryor of the Arguello fight, or whatever. And then sometimes if we do it where the Ray Robinson at 147, or the Sugar Ray Leonard at 150, whatever, we'll explain. But our basic goal is the best of the best version. Sometimes it'll be one where a guy, like, really, to me, what was the best? What do you think the best weight was for Sugar Ray Robinson?
Sugar Ray Robinson was best at 147 pounds because
Exactly.
at 160, at the time that he fought his first middleweight championship fight against LaMotta in 51 to his last one over a decade later, he was 23-8-1. But as a welterweight, he was absolutely dominant.
Right.
Absolutely dominant. That's the Sugar Ray Robinson.
I agree, but I still think he's a Hall of Famer in both weight divisions if you go by his ability inside. Sure. Some of those losses were, So my point is, and we'll explain that, and we want you to give what I'd really love after we do, 4 or 5 of these, would be for the fans to make suggestions, and we look it over and say, wow, Bob in Chicago wants us to match, Willie Pep and
Salvador Sanchez.
And yeah, is that feasible or in a way? And so we'll figure out ways to make it happen if it's realistic, if it really could have happened with the fighters at any times in their career when they were still at their peak, and we will match them. But this first one, honestly, well, I'm certainly not going to give a pick. And how we'll do it, folks, is we'll match up the fighters. We'll give like a tail of the tape. We'll explain their weaknesses. We'll explain their strengths. I should have started out with strengths and weaknesses, subtleties. We'll have guests on, perhaps somebody that fought one of them, perhaps somebody that fights like one of them. Maybe we'll get an expert like Tommy Yankello on to break it down, or maybe a broadcaster like Jim Lampley, who was involved in maybe one of them. But really, this will be, I hope, the most comprehensive breakdown of classic clashes of the greatest fighters of all time moving forward. That's what we're going to do on In This Corner, the podcast. But We will still, from time to time, pull back and lace them back up for a special interview, a special show, a special conversation, and there will be those unique surprises with guests from other areas and might even be off topic. That could happen too. But for the most part, this is the direction we're going moving forward.
Yeah, one of the really good things about this new format is that you have the eyes, you have the in-ring experience of Smitty, you have the historical perspective, and the ability to break down fights. And then you have, in many cases, my CompuBox numbers and my own historical knowledge. We have 100 years combined of experience in this sport. So I don't think
we'll cover all four. We'll cover all the four corners of the ring and dissect and break down and analyze. And you know what? We'll never be wrong. We're never going to be wrong with a prediction again. Never.
No
because we'll never
war.
Really know. Hopefully we can just, and it's mostly about having fun. The F word, that great F word, having fun. And I know the fans and the people we know and like the people that we see in Canastota will enjoy that. So that'll be moving forward. First up, the Hawk, Aaron Pryor versus Sweet Pea, Pernell Whitaker. Have we decided, though, and we'll announce it again, how many rounds that one should be?
I think we were leaning toward 15.
Okay.
But, since Whitaker never fought a 15-rounder, it's kind of unfair to him. But you would think that an elite fighter, there's that word again, elite fighter like Whitaker would be able to handle 15
and some
rounds.
of these matchups are going to be so tightly, contested. I think we need the real championship rounds. By the way, I've always stuck to my guns. I can still hear certain producers in my ear saying, Smitty, make sure you say, now we're going to the championship rounds. And I would always hit the button, the talk back button, and say, no, there are no more championship rounds. So I'll just say coming up, the final two, the penultimate round or the final round or whatever, there ain't championship rounds. 13, 14, 15, gone. So we might as well bring them back. Anyway, great job, Lee, on today's show. I really look forward to moving forward with the new format, so to speak, the new style. In this corner of the podcast, $1.90. So long, everybody.